What happens when a mother opens her home to the very child she is trying to save, only for that child to turn against her? She stays by her daughter's side through the struggles, believing that love and patience can help her get her life back on track. But inside that home, something begins to change. The daughter turns against the woman who raised her. The person her mother trusted most becomes the person she fears most. And before the mother can escape the danger unfolding inside her own home, her attempt to help her daughter ends with her own life being taken. Sometimes the greatest danger isn't waiting outside the front door. Sometimes it is already living inside the home. This is the story. 80 years old, Anita Avers opened the door to her private practice in Wichita, Kansas, creating a space where people could sit down, speak freely, and work through the problems weighing on them. Some clients came to her alone. Others arrived with their spouses, while families sat together in her office, trying to repair conflicts that had pushed them apart. She also welcomed clients at Wichita Counseling Professionals on Rock Road, where she worked with adults between 18 and 65 and older, adults aged 65 and above. Behind her office door, people brought stories of trauma, anxiety, depression, relationship problems, and family conflict. Some struggled with bipolar disorder or borderline personality disorder. She listened, asked questions, and guided them through the difficult conversations they often found hard to have on their own. Rather than simply telling her clients what to do, she worked with them to identify the thoughts and patterns affecting their lives. She used cognitive behavioral therapy to help them examine those patterns, person-centered therapy to create a supportive environment, and strength-based approaches to help them recognize the abilities they already possessed. She also incorporated mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, encouraging clients to slow down, pay attention to their thoughts and emotions, and respond to them more deliberately. Day after day, her office became a place where individuals, couples, and families walked in carrying emotional burdens and sat across from her trying to find a way forward. After her busy day at work, Anita would return home to Wichita, Kansas, to spend time with her blended family, that is, her husband, Barry Aves, and her two stepchildren, that is, Sonia Kreuziger and Russell Kreuziger. This was Anita's second marriage. Initially, she had been married to a man named Brad Mock, and together they had 4 children, Angeline M. Mock, Eric Mock, Paul Mock, and another child who died earlier. They initially lived in Minneapolis, Minnesota for over 30 years. However, when her relationship with Brad ended, that was when she married Barry Aves, and the two relocated to Wichita, Kansas, where they formed a blended family. Unfortunately, later, Anita found herself dealing with a very difficult situation. Part of Anita's life revolved around caring for her adult daughter, Angeline "Angie" Mock. Angie had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but over time, her condition progressed to schizoaffective disorder. At times, paranoia took hold of her. She would look at the people around her and insist that they were robots. Anita stayed close. She lived with Angie, keeping an eye on her and helping her navigate the moments when her fears and delusions became overwhelming. Anita's husband, Barry Aves, also stepped in to help. But Anita watched as another battle began taking pieces of her daughter's life. Angie had built a successful career as a television anchor in St. Louis. Then alcohol began interfering with that career. Eventually, an explosive incident involving alcohol led to her being fired. The job was gone. Her professional life began to unravel, and financial and personal problems followed. Anita opened the doors of her own home. Angie moved in, and Anita became more than a mother watching from the sidelines. She was there beside her daughter as Angie tried to cope with the collapse of the life she had once built. Soon, tension began showing inside their home. Money problems weighed on the family, while Angeline's worsening illness brought new challenges. Anita tried to hold everything together, but arguments and strained conversations became increasingly common. Anita repeatedly urged her daughter to get professional help. She encouraged Angeline to see psychologists and psychiatrists, hoping treatment would help her regain stability. But Angeline continued to battle periods of severe delusions, followed by deep bouts of depression. Then, the arguments became explosive. During angry outbursts, Angeline would raise her voice and lash out verbally. On one occasion, the confrontation inside the home became so intense that someone called the police. Officers arrived at the house and intervened. The situation was serious enough that Angeline was taken for psychiatric care. She remained hospitalized for 2 weeks. For Anita, the incident was another painful reminder that her daughter's condition was becoming increasingly difficult to manage at home. Anita had no way of knowing that October 31st, 2025 would be her final day. That day, emergency crews rushed to a home on East Crowley Street in Wichita, Kansas, after receiving a report of a cutting. Inside the house, officers entered the bedroom and found Anita lying motionless in her bed. They moved closer and saw the extent of her injuries. Severe scab wounds covered her head, face, neck, and torso. Outside the house, officers found Angeline Mock. Blood covered her clothing and cuts were visible on her hands. Investigators moved through the home and began examining the scene. Near Anita's body, they found kitchen knives and a cheese grater laid out on a pillow directly next to the victim's body. Blood trails and forensic evidence inside the home directly connected Mock's injuries and presence to the bedroom where the attack occurred. Paramedics rushed Anita to a local hospital, but her condition was critical. Shortly after arriving at the hospital, Anita was pronounced dead. When the dispatcher questioned her, Angie Mock tried to explain what had happened. She told them that she believed her mother was the devil and that her mother was jealous of her. Then she gave them her reason for the attack. Mock said she had killed her mother because she believed it was the only way to save herself. Her words revealed the frightening beliefs she had been experiencing as she tried to make sense of the violence that had just occurred. It turned out that immediately after attacking her mother, Angie Mock burst out of the house, covered in blood. She rushed toward a neighbor's truck and began banging on it, trying to get his attention. When the neighbor stepped out, Mock asked him to call the police. The man spoke only Spanish, but he recognized the word police. He handed Mock his phone before running inside to get his girlfriend, who spoke English. Mock grabbed the phone and called emergency services herself. When the dispatcher answered, she described what had happened and told them that she had stabbed her mother. The emergency call sent Wichita police officers rushing to the house. When officers arrived, they found Mock bleeding on the street outside. They quickly moved inside and headed toward the bedroom. There, they found Anita lying unresponsive in her bed, suffering from severe injuries. The officers immediately called for medical assistance as the reality of what had happened inside the house began to emerge. Now, the investigators found Anita Avers unresponsive in her bed inside the house. They also found Mock present at that time. They recovered kitchen knives and a cheese grater covered in blood, which had been placed on a pillow directly next to the victim's body. Blood trails and forensic evidence inside the home directly connected Mock's injuries and presence to the bedroom where the attack occurred. Upon her immediate arrest, Mock made spontaneous statements to the police. She admitted to the stabbing, claiming she did it to save herself because she believed her mother was the devil. When officers detained Mock on a sidewalk without incident, when they found her standing in the street outside the East Crowley Street residence, she was heavily covered in blood and suffering from cuts on her hands, so they transported her under guard to a local hospital for medical treatment because she had severe cuts on her hands. After her wounds were treated, she was taken to the police station for questioning, formally charged, and booked into the Sedgwick County Jail on account of first-degree murder. Because she entered a guilty plea on August 21, 2026, her formal sentencing hearing has not yet occurred. District Court Judge Faith Johnson is scheduled to officially hand down the sentence on October 5, 2026 at 11 a.m. Angeline or Angie Mock faces a mandatory sentence of life in prison with eligibility for parole after serving 25 years. As part of her signed plea agreement, Mock also agreed to pay restitution and laboratory fees directly to the Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center. May the soul of Anita Avers rest in peace, and may she receive the justice that she deserves.